Welcome. Good evening, depending on where you're joining from. We're so glad you're here. If you do want to share where you're joining from, you're welcome to in the chat. We always like to see what's bringing people to this webinar and panel discussion, and maybe where in the world you're joining from. It may change your time zone, your weather, but we're really glad you're here. I'm Kelsey. I'm representing Pickles Group, and we've got an amazing lineup of partners and parents and supporters and advocates. So really glad to be in community with you all. Welcome, welcome. We'll keep letting folks in. I see we have one comment in the chat. Virginia, welcome, Stephanie from Virginia. We're glad you're here. I'm in Illinois. It's actually very rainy and thunderstorm. And my Wi-Fi was cutting in and out earlier, but I think we might have gotten past it. Welcome, welcome. I'm just going to share my screen here. All right, welcome for those who are just hopping on. I'm Kelsey Mora with Pickles Group. If you want to share in the chat where you're joining from and what brings you here, we'd love to know. And we'll be kicking things off shortly. I want to be mindful of time. We did have a lot of people registered, and so I'm sure people will be hopping on as they can. I know everyone is navigating work, life, maybe children, health. So we will be recording this and sharing the recording with all of the registered participants, as well as putting it on our YouTube channel as well. All right. I'm going to go ahead and I'll get us started, and then we'll keep letting folks in as they arrive. So again, thank you for being here. I'm Kelsey Mora. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer for Pickles Group. This talk is one of my favorites. This is our second time doing this year with different partners and different panelists. So the conversation and discussion will, of course, be different because it is personal, but we are centering the experience of Black families and Black voices talking to kids about cancer in honor of Juneteenth. And we are doing this in collaboration with an incredible group of organizations, which you can see on the screen. We have Byrd Cancer Foundation, Touch, the Black Breast Cancer Alliance, Mt Sinai Health System, the American Cancer Society, Voices of Black Women Program, Kidney Cancer Association, and LUNGevity. We're so glad that you're all here. My coworker Cam and Alana are also on the call, and we're gonna dive in. So this webinar is generously sponsored by Servier. We are grateful for their support in making this possible. Okay, so before I begin, I do just want to share a little bit more about what Pickles Group is, because if you're new to the organization, it can be helpful in terms of how we approach these conversations and these topics. So Pickles Group is a nonprofit organization, and we are focused on providing free peer-to-peer support and resources for kids and teens who have a parent with cancer. We do that in three main ways. So all of our programming is built on three pillars. That's honest and age-appropriate information, coping skills, and then peer connection. So that's really how we approach all of our programming and all of our work. And these webinars are really focused on this honest and age-appropriate information piece in terms of how do I have these conversations with kids, and hearing directly from other parents and families who can share what their lived experience has been with some of these difficult conversations. So I'm going to cover some developmental responses. I'll talk about infancy through adolescence. We'll also take a closer look at what we call our Family Cancer Support Kit. That's a free resource that's available to families and hospitals and organizations that has tips in it for how to talk to kids during and throughout the whole cancer experience. And then we will pivot to our family panel and discussion, and you'll hear from some of our partner organizations, and you'll be also receiving a PDF of this slides, which has a lot of information about all of our partner organizations in it, as well as a two-pager that we'll be sharing that highlights some of the research and literature that really informs this conversation. So I'm going to turn it over to Haley with Touch to just ground us in the celebration and honor of Juneteenth and why we are all together, centering the experience of Black voices and Black families. So Haley, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad I made it just in time. But I'm really happy to be here celebrating Juneteenth with everyone and Pickles Group and some of my amazing partners and friends in this work. And so, yeah, so before we even dive in, I want everyone to pull out the chat. And while you get ready to use the chat, I will quickly say that I'm Haley from Touch the Black Breast Cancer Alliance. We really work to eradicate Black breast cancer and educate about Black breast health all across the country where Black women live, work, play, pray, and slay. And so naturally, Juneteenth is a really important holiday for us as a company and us as a people. Okay, so quick trivia. Number one, what does Juneteenth celebrate? Go ahead and throw your answer in the chat. These are pretty basic questions. I did teach elementary school, so this is my jam, which is also why Pickles Group is near and dear to my heart. So, not seeing many. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Yeah, so seeing some answers come in, but Juneteenth celebrates when the last slaves were freed. This happened on June 19th, 1965 in Galveston, Texas. Okay, next question is number two. In what year did Juneteenth become a federal holiday? Bonus points if you know who was a part of this. So, yes, Joe Biden actually made this a federal holiday in 2021. And I think that it's been, I mean, obviously pretty recent. So think about all the years that we did not celebrate Juneteenth, for a quick second, and how important how crazy that is for our country to not be celebrating that. Random question. What drink is traditionally associated with Juneteenth? Definitely extra credit if you get this one. So it's actually a hibiscus tea originated in West Africa is the drink of this day. So everybody go, make sure you get some tea tomorrow. Um, and then what is another name for Juneteenth? Don't think too hard. Think naturally what comes up. Yes, they're all there. Freedom Day, Emancipation Day, Jubilee Day. So definitely take some time to acknowledge where, your where you're from, who in your family you want to celebrate tomorrow as a part of this amazing day. And then just quickly to ground us in this work that we're discussing today and the work that I think we're all here to do every day. Let's listen to a quote from Barack Obama. Juneteenth has never been a celebration of victory or an acceptance of the way things are. It's a celebration of progress. It's an affirmation that despite the most painful parts of our history, change is possible, and there is still so much work to do. So let's go ahead and continue to do that work under the lens of celebrating Juneteenth. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much, Haley. I saw that some people said they learned something new today, so I love that. And I have my husband is Mexican, and we drink agua de Jamaica a lot, which is a hibiscus tea. So there must be some similarity in the drink. Appreciate that. All right, I'm going to pivot to developmental responses here, and I'm going to cover infancy through adolescence. So, our Pickles Group programming is really the youth programming is centered on first through 12th grade, but we recognize that families often have kids who span different developmental levels and age ranges. And so, I want to talk about even the littlest ones that we often unintentionally forget about. We often think that the infants and toddlers are going to understand or they're not going to remember. And the risk of that is that toddlers and infants can be equally as impacted because they sense the changes and are aware of the behaviors and feelings around them. So if we think about a young infant who's crying and crying and crying, they're really looking to their caregivers to help them regulate. It could be to meet their basic needs, such as feeding them or changing their diaper, but more than anything, it could be even just regulating them with temperature and body and heart rate. And so those things happen really early. And so when suddenly cancer enters the family, there can be a lot of disruption, changes in caregiving, changes in routines, changes in the people that are around them. And so thinking about even the littlest ones and how that affects them. Preschoolers start to have some understanding, but they're often going to relate that to what's familiar to them. So they'll probably be thinking of sickness and illnesses that involve runny noses, boogers, coughs, contagious that are contagious, such as the flu or the cold. And so it's really important to explain that cancer is a different kind of illness. We often talk about it as a problem with the cells to help kids understand that it's different. That it's going to take someone longer to get better. They may or may not get better. They may get more sick before they get better. The symptoms look really different and you can't catch it. It's not contagious and it's nobody's fault. So, really helping kids understand that this is different. If they just hear the word sick or ill, they may not really grasp or understand the full picture, and it might actually be more confusing. And then we have elementary age kiddos who are probably a little bit more out in the world. Maybe they're going to school, they're going to activities, after school clubs, and they might have more understanding, but they also might have misinformation. So, kids who aren't maybe receiving information from their trusted adults or grown-ups around them, they may ask questions to a friend or to someone else or to the internet. And so the risk is that if we're not the ones giving them the honest information, they may seek it from elsewhere, which may mean that they get incorrect information and actually worry more. And then adolescents are kind of another forgotten age group because we often assume that they understand more than they might. And we also might lean on them a lot to help out in the family. They're the oldest, they're capable, they're more independent, they're more responsible. And that may mean that they're thinking about big picture. Maybe they're really struggling with roles. They're thinking about how's this going to affect me? What about these other things and these other responsibilities that I have? And they may be helping care for other people and not think about their own feelings. And so all of this to say that different developmental responses are going to look different based on age. And all of the kids really need the same things, which is that honest information, those coping skills, and that connection. So, we're going to talk about how we actually do that for kids. So this is our family cancer support kit. If you haven't seen it, you will receive more information about that in the follow-up email. But this is available in English and Spanish, both digitally and in print. So this is a thin booklet that we share, and hospitals are distributing them all over the map when parents are asking, what about my kids at home? So it has tips in it for talking with kids about cancer, but it also has more than that. It has common questions, it has the developmental considerations, it has a family friendly activity. And this has actually been created with a lot of our partners' feedback. Haley, who you just heard from, was actually one of the people who helped review this program to make sure that families could really see themselves in it. And so we're really proud of this, and it's being passed out in many hospitals so that families have the resources to have these difficult conversations at home. So, the three guiding tips for talking to kids and teens about cancer are these. We talk about sharing information, sharing expectations, and sharing feelings. So, I'm going to go into each of those in a little bit more detail. So, sharing information. So, again, I talked about an honest, age appropriate version of the truth. So, often thinking about, where do I do this? How do I do this? What do I do? And so, we often encourage parents to think about setting the stage. So, thinking about when and where to have this conversation. And when I'm talking about the conversation, I'm not talking about only a diagnosis conversation. Many of you might be here and you're well past a diagnosis, but maybe your kid is getting a little bit older and they're asking new questions now. Or maybe you're in survivorship and they're asking questions about the previous years or some of the current follow up care or any sort of changed abilities. And so these conversations continue throughout the whole cancer experience. And kids' questions and concerns and needs will change throughout that experience based on their age and what they understand. So we're really talking about any conversation along the way. It can be helpful to try to help kids be kind of in their best state. So making sure they're well rested, well fed, they have their basic needs met, so that you can then address this conversation and starting with a warning, like I have an update, or I have something difficult to talk to you about. I have something important to talk to you about. What that does is it kind of helps them tune in differently, that whatever is going to be shared might be a little bit different or a little bit difficult to hear. And like I said, it's not a one and done conversation. We're really thinking about who this child will be in the future. And so in the beginning, where you might feel like you really want to protect them. They're so little, they're so innocent. Maybe they don't need to know this is really hard. I've got this. And they may want to be older and be able to say, I'm so glad I knew. I'm so glad I understood. I'm so glad I could be there. And the fear is that kids may say, I wished I had known or I didn't understand because they are so curious and they're so in tune with what they see and what they hear, even things that are in hushed tones trying to protect them. And so just having the conversation at a really simple level can go a long way. As I already shared, kind of using real words, talking about cancer as a different kind of sick, a problem with the cells. Depending on how old the child is or what maybe they've already experienced, you may be differentiating between different cancer experiences. I know that there are a lot of organizations on this webinar that help with family history and early detection. And so there may be multiple cancer experiences in one family and helping kids understand when it's maybe different and why. And so really distinguishing those different cancer experiences. And then following their lead. The need to know, I always recommend encouraging parents to start with the need to know. What do my kids need to know right now? And what I mean by that is what are they observing? What are they experiencing? How is this affecting them? And then it kind of moves us toward the want to know. What questions are they asking? What are they curious about? And that can be really helpful because kids will kind of self-dose how much they can handle. They'll let you know if it's too much. They'll ask a lot of questions if they need more. And it's really just about kind of opening the lines of communication and then seeing what follows. Some kids will want to talk a lot and some kids won't. We often get the question, what if my kid doesn't want to talk? Do I force them to talk? Did I make a mistake? Staying consistent, just keep following up, hanging out, engaging in the things that matter are important to them, and they'll know if and when they want to and can talk about it. Sharing expectations. So this is about preparing for all of the changes. So obviously, a lot changes when a parent has cancer. Not everything has to change, but there will be a lot of changes. And so helping kids think about what will be different, but also what will be the same. It might be helping them understand like you're still going to go to school, but you're going to stay a little bit longer and you're going to take the bus home. Or this weekend, I'm going to be in the hospital and grandpa's going to take care of you, right? So just helping kids know what's going to be different. We can't prepare for all of the changes, but by doing so, it actually makes it sometimes easier to talk about the unexpected. If we've already talked about cancer and then they come home from school and mom's in the hospital because she had a fever, you don't have to feel like you're starting from the beginning. You can build on some of the conversations and understanding that has already happened. One thing that can be really helpful, I'm sure many of you on the call can relate to just feeling this lack of control when navigating cancer. Kids feel that too. And so they really need a sense of control. And some of the ways to do that are just to provide choices. It could be choices about how involved they want to be. Do you want to visit me at the hospital? Do you want to come with me to clinic? Do you want to make a card for my bag? Or it might be just everyday choices. Homework's not a choice. Do you want to do it now or in 30 minutes? That can be helpful for any child, but especially when their world has been flipped upside down and they just need to feel like things are predictable. And that brings me to this third piece around keeping things consistent. If you're a parent on the call, I'm sure you can relate to wanting to parent when cancer has become a lot of your world. And so kids will sometimes be like, I don't know if I should bother my parent. They're so busy, they don't feel well. And often, of course, parents need to rest and heal. But a lot of times parents are like, I wanna help, I wanna talk when I'm feeling up for it. And so being able to open the lines of communication, even just about some of those day-to-day things, can really help so that kids know that they can come to you. They know that, maybe when you're not feeling well, they'll know because you'll be able to communicate that to them. So maintaining structure, routine, even rules can really help with predictability. Right now, cancer might be in the focal point, but it may not always be. And so if we get too far from the regular routine and the regular rules, it can be a lot harder to kind of get back to the way things were before when things settle down. And then this third tip is about sharing feelings. So this can look really different in different households, and it may not always be how adults have grown up, but it can be really helpful to even just name your own feelings and validate that it's okay to feel a range of feelings. Modeling that for children, because not everything is great about cancer. It is okay to experience joy and laughter and faith, and there may be times where it stinks and it's sad and it's frustrating and it's tricky. And naming that can be really helpful for kids because they feel like, oh, it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to have fun sometimes. It's also okay to recognize that today's really hard. And when they see parents doing that, it gives them permission to do that too. And to know that it is okay, that we don't have to act like everything's okay. We can be hopeful, we can be strong, and being strong might mean also having rest days, also having days where it feels really hard. And so being able to just embrace as a family the feelings that are coming with this and that it's a roller coaster. I always say those are transferable skills. Those are skills that can be helpful for kids no matter what they face in life, to be able to know how they feel and what to do about it. So even practicing coping strategies as a family, that's a big part of Pickles Group, figuring out what everybody needs and recognizing that two people in the same family are going to need different things. So someone might be more of a physical person, they might need to exercise or have really big energy, and someone else might need to be more reflective and calm and creative. And so really playing around with what works for any given family and normalizing that we all need to kind of recharge our batteries and work through these feelings. So at Pickles Group, we have these three main tips, and we really apply them to different difficult conversations. What you're going to see in the follow up email is we have two articles that we reviewed that really talk about some of the psychosocial support needs specifically for Black and African American families. And there are specific things that were highlighted. So, of the coping skills, they really align with what we address in our Pickles Group programming. And those were, I'm going to want to pull up the specific article because you're all going to receive, the copies. But what it highlights is that like a really high percentage, of course, of parents were concerned about the well-being of their children, and the way that they really got at what kids needed was centered in adjusting family roles, um, and coping skills and faith. So really navigating the logistical pieces. We talked about even just kind of getting your kids where they need to go, coping skills as a family, and then really relying on faith. And so I'm going to pivot because every lived experience is so different, but we have an incredible panel of parents here to share with you what's been most helpful for them, what's been most tricky for them. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Nia Bailey, who is the president of Byrd Cancer Foundation, to moderate our panel of guests. And each of these parents is here representing one of our partner organizations, as well as some of their own organizations that they're involved with. And so I'm just really excited to turn it over to these parents and families to discuss a little bit further about their own lived experience, to hear kind of how some of these things have been applied or maybe not, or worked through, or been challenging. So I'm just going to stop my share so that you can, well, first I'm going to show you some of their beautiful families, and then I'll close my screen so that you can see everyone who's here today. Thanks, Nia.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelsey. Everyone, happy Juneteenth Eve. We're almost there, and I'm so excited. Like Kelsey said, my name is Nia Bailey. I am from West Philadelphia. I have also experienced this cancer journey in that my father had cancer. I am living with a cancer gene, BCL6, and I am just so excited to jump right into it. I'm going to next pass this to my friend Tiara, and she can introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Happy Juneteenth Eve. I am Tiara Neal. I am a 6-year breast cancer survivor. I was diagnosed at 33, no family history, with stage 1 invasive ductal carcinoma. I had a bilateral mastectomy at 33 years old, and I found my cancer myself. I currently live in South Florida right now with my family. And we're actually getting ready to move back to the DMV. So if there's anyone in the DMV, we'll be relocating there here in the next couple of months. Again, I have one son. This is Jordan. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Jordan. I'm 12.
He's in sixth grade. So, well, sorry, we're moving on to seventh grade. So, we're now in middle school. If anyone has children and understands that middle school is completely different, especially at this day and age. So I'm just happy to be alive and to be thriving and in survivorship and being able to raise my son for the last 6 years. So thank you for this platform. Thank you to Pickles. Thank you to all the organizations that are here. I am here representing Touch the Black Breast Cancer Alliance, my #1 partnership in this fight against Black breast cancer. I am also the executive director of the BEXA Equity Alliance. So thank you for having us here.
Tiara and Jordan, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am now going to introduce Mallory. If you can please introduce yourself. We'll switch it over to Janelle. Janelle, where you at, girl?
Oh, Mallory, I see you talking,
Oh,
but
okay.
I couldn't hear you, and I don't see your mute button on, so we might have an audio issue. Maybe we'll move over to Janelle and see if we can work through that.
Awesome.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Janelle Moreland. I'm coming in here in like a three-piece role, right? So I'm not a breast cancer survivor, nor am I a cancer survivor. However, I do have a breast cancer organization, and it's called Pink Divas and Gents because men can get breast cancer too. I am also here as a representative for Pickles Partner, American Cancer Society Voices of Black Women. And then I'm also here on the panel today as a child of parents who had cancer and passed away a couple of years ago. So I'm representing 3 different roles. So thank you, Pickles, for having us. This is a great platform, and it's so great to see all you beautiful people here with us tonight.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Janelle. Shantae, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Shantae Holmes, and I'm from right outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And I am the spouse of someone who had cancer. My husband was diagnosed with colon cancer stage 3 at age 42 with no known family history. I am also here as the co-executive director and founder of Be Inclusive, which is a nonprofit that I run in my town of Walpole, Massachusetts. We, as you can see in my background, are getting ready to celebrate Juneteenth tomorrow. I'm also here as a parent panelist with Pickles, and I'm really excited and thankful for the program. My daughter attended and was really happy and really thrived in that program. So thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Shantae. Brandy, please tell us all about you.
Hi, guys. Thank you, and happy pre-Juneteenth to everyone. I am Brandy Bryant. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm actually traveling right now. I'm in Tallahassee because my daughter has a volleyball camp. I am a lung cancer survivor. I was diagnosed 7.5 years ago, stage 4 lung cancer. I'm a mom of 4, got divorced right before I was diagnosed. And I'm here on behalf of LUNGevity. Don't let me forget that. I work with LUNGevity and a lot of other lung cancer patient organizations. I'm a patient advocate. I'm always, trying to spread the word about lung cancer and how anyone can get it, and then also sharing for children. Like that was the #1 thing that I asked about after my diagnosis, and maybe we'll get into that, but that was like the first thing I asked the hospital, like, what about my kids? So I'm happy to be here. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Brandy, for joining us. And now, Mallory, you can round us off. Please introduce yourself.
I'm so sorry, guys. I hope you guys can hear me well. I just grabbed my phone. But hi, my name is Mallory Fox. I am from Charlotte, North Carolina. I am, I work with the Kidney Cancer Association because 2 years ago, I was unexpectedly diagnosed with renal cell carcinoma, have no family history, had no symptoms, and was very scared, did not know where to turn, how to go, and how to navigate life and be a mom and a wife and a business owner, all the things with cancer. So luckily, I am 2 years cancer free. Still have to have preventative measures, But thank you so much for this opportunity, Pickles. Thank you, everyone in the panel, for such an amazing conversation. I can't wait to share my story as well as learn about everyone else. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much. Now, Mallory, I'm gonna have you stay on. You're right here. You're looking beautiful. You shining.
Oh,
We're gonna jump right into it.
okay.
Briefly tell us about that diagnosis. And once you received that diagnosis, how did you tell your children?
Oh God. Going back to 2 years ago, I can remember when I had to have my MRI. And I remember the nurse telling me, when you get home, don't look at your chart, don't look at anything, just let the doctor talk to you about what we've seen. And of course, instinct is gonna say, I'm gonna look at what she don't want me to look at. Like, this is crazy. And I'm doing my research and I'm like, this, I can't have this because the demographics it did not line up with me. It's a cancer that is normally associated with Caucasian males over the age of 80. I'm a Black female and I'm only 36. Like, this doesn't make any sense. So first I had the conversation with my husband and we wanted to just figure out how we were going to have the conversation with our children. And to be honest and to be very transparent, I did not have the conversation with my children because I was afraid. I did not want them to go around and think that I was going to expire. I did not want them to have to worry about me. Like Tiara, I am a mom of a teenager and that's in middle school. And we all know that our children have access to every single thing when it comes down to technology. So I did not want that to be the focus of anything. So I did not tell them until the day before my partial nephrectomy. And that was the worst mistake that I could have made because I didn't want my children to worry. I didn't want them to think that anything was going to happen to me. And that was a scary conversation. So in hindsight, I wish I could have done things differently, but this was something very new to me as well. So having the conversation with them was very tough. I have an 8-year-old who had so many questions. How did this happen? How did you get it? Is it contagious? And I wish I would have known about Pickles and the organization that kind of could have helped me do that. But that was one thing that I really regret about this whole journey is waiting to tell them because I wish I would have let them know because we were very secretive around the house and that was very a hard time. So that's how that conversation went for us.
Well, thank you so much for being transparent. But I also have to say, please give yourself grace because, like you said, that was the first time that anybody was dealing with that. So give yourself grace.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Welcome. Now, you mentioned my girl, Tiara. Tiara, briefly tell us about your cancer diagnosis and then bring Jordan in. How did you have that conversation with your baby?
Yes, thank you. So I was diagnosed, like I said, at 33, no family history. And 6 months prior to being diagnosed, I had gone in for my yearly gynecologist appointment and for the first time ever had asked for a clinical breast exam and was turned away. That was one of those moments where I felt that I was not important. I was dismissed. And at the time I had Cadillac insurance, is what I like to call. So I had a moment there and I wondered, why did I feel why did I feel so emotional about that other than of course being dismissed for a clinical breast exam when I deserved that. 6 months later, a woman's intuition never lies. And so 6 months later, I felt something. I was in a lot of pain in my right breast. And I felt what felt like a little pebble, and I went to a different doctor, praise God. And even though, I kept throughout my whole cancer journey being told that I was young, healthy, and had no family history, and that it was most likely nothing, and had a delay throughout my whole process because I was young, healthy, with no family history, they kept putting me to the side as if nothing was going on. Fast forward, I was diagnosed with stage 1 invasive ductal carcinoma. I didn't get my actual diagnosis until 4 or 5 months after I found the mass, which is way too long. And when I found out that it was cancer, I had to take a moment for myself. And first, the first person I told was my mother. And I questioned God, and that's something I've never done. I am a woman of God. And I just said, God, please spare me, because I at the time was a single mom, and my son was 5 years old at the time, and I had to raise him. In my heart of hearts, I knew whatever battle I had before me, I was going to fight, and I was going to fight with everything I had. And so I said a prayer, cried my tears, had my panic attacks. And this is me just being extremely transparent. And once I got through that part of it and sharing with my immediate family, I'm the youngest of four. So, there's four more of us, and I'm the youngest. So, nobody, both my parents alive and thriving in their 70s. So it was a big shock to my family. And I also have 8 nieces and nephews. So there's a lot of us that I had to explain this to. But most importantly, I had to share that with my son, who at the time was 5 years old. And, it took a moment, but I thought, at 5 years old, really, what could he really grasp other than, yes, mommy has the C word, and is sick, but we're going to get through this. And I really called on my village. I called on my family to help us. Everybody came into town and, really showed so much love and support. And I think that was critical to his well-being and to my well-being. And so I am going to let him share. I think it's important to hear his perspective as to what he remembers being 5 to now being 12 years old, and kind of what that journey has looked like for him. I think it would be great to hear from you, buddy. Would you like to share?
When I was 5, I would just see my mom laying on the couch, and I was also sick. I had asthma attacks, so it was a lot. But when I got out of the hospital, I would see my mom laying on the couch, and I would be like, huh, why does she look like this? So I would just try to make her laugh. I would do all these weird things. I'm sure she still has videos of them, but as I get older, I understand that as a little kid, you're not going to understand what your mom is going through, or your dad. And I thank my mom for fighting for me, because I know without God, she probably wouldn't be here with us. So I thank everybody for their support, and for all the kids out there, make your mom laugh. It helps them get through it.
Jordan, you are amazing. Tiara, you too, but oh my goodness.
I didn't know I was going to cry, but this is the first time we've ever been in this space together. I've spoken on so many panels, and I do this for a living, and I've never had a platform in which my son was able to share this journey with me at this level. So thank you, Pickles, for, this experience for us. This is healing. This is an ongoing process. I don't want to take up too much time because there's so many wonderful people on this panel, but I'll quickly share a story. When Jordan was fast forward to when he was in 2nd or 3rd grade, he had a teacher that had cancer in his school, and they, over the loudspeaker, shared with everybody that that teacher had passed away from cancer. And so my son had a breakdown at school, because he thought at that time, so going back to essentially what Kelsey was sharing about the different stages of children really understanding what this journey looks like. He thought because that teacher died, and he knew, he put together, like, my mom had that C word. So, is she going to die? So he had to go to the guidance counselor. They called us, and we had to counsel him through that and remind him that, listen, mommy is one of the lucky ones that had early stage diagnosis, and that I'm here, and I'm here for the long haul. So working through that was really challenging. And I think an organization like Pickles, had I known, or had it been around, would have been great for us to just lean on during that time. And I think at every stage, it's really important to have that resource and to have that support to kind of meet you where you are at that stage, and being able to understand what that looks like, throughout, from here until, he gets older, and really forever. It never goes away. So anyways, thank you all. And thank you, buddy. I'm going to let him go play his video game.
Thank you so much, Jordan. We appreciate you. Keep using your voice. We're going to need you a lot more. So keep using your voice.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Tara, for being so honest and transparent.
Thank
Brandy, oh, bye. Brandy, I'm going to call you on, my friend. Please
Okay.
tell us about your diagnosis, the cancer journey, and talking to your babies.
Yeah, so of course my diagnosis came as a complete shock because I had no risk factors for lung cancer. I was exercising regularly and I had no issues except for whenever I decided to go to the doctor after I noticed I was having shortness of breath. And that led to some x-rays, and eventually 2 months later, I was diagnosed with lung cancer. So I knew that I had to tell them. There was just going to be too many changes in the house because my first round of treatment was going to be chemotherapy and radiation. And I just knew that we would need help. So, you know, my ex-husband still lived at the house at the time because we had just gotten divorced. So we were still working together. So that was kind of a bonus, I think, that we were able to have that. But I had I was really fortunate. I'm the oldest of 4 kids, Tiara. But I was really fortunate that my mom has retired, and so she was able to come from Oklahoma and stay with me for like the duration of my treatment. And I had a lot of community support in the area that I live in Atlanta. I had teachers having play dates with my kids. I had, people doing laundry. I had a meal train one of my friends set up. Like, we had so much support that way. But telling the kids was really important for me because I didn't want them to be afraid. I didn't want them to worry. So I just, I told them the truth. Like, mommy's got lung cancer. This is what I've got to do. I'll probably be sick, and, we'll have people dropping food off. And I let them ask us questions. We asked their questions. The hardest question for sure that one of my kids, my youngest kid was 3 years old when I was diagnosed. But the hardest question they asked me for sure was, "Mommy, are you going to die?" And it's like, I don't know, baby. I'm going to fight with all that I have. We're gonna, we're praying, we're fighting, we're using the best Medicaid. The doctors are using the best treatment that they know that they have available. So I don't think so. But I did tell them this was another important part for me telling the kids, because I'm an advanced stage cancer patient and we just didn't know. I told them that I'm not going to update them every single time something happens. Like, I'm not going to talk to them about every single change. But I said, if there's something important that happens, if something makes me worried, then I will tell you. Then I will talk to you all. But if mommy's not worried, I still give them updates. I mean, it's been a long time now, but if I'm not worried, then there's no need for them to think about it too hard. But when I maybe I'll get a scan that's going to change things. That's highly likely. And at that time we'll talk again. But I think it was so important for me to set that up even at the initial diagnosis, that if I'm worried, I'll let you know.
Wow, that's powerful. And I'm so glad you had a community to rally behind you and your babies.
Yeah, it was important.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being transparent with us. Shantae, please tell us about your story and telling your children, and how it's that conversation.
Yeah, so my husband, it was tough. We live in Massachusetts, which is known for our healthcare. And unfortunately, my husband, in my opinion, there's no proof of this, was misdiagnosed. He had pain in his abdomen starting in November of 2023. He went to the doctor, had, saw a doctor. They thought it was his gallbladder. He went for surgery and had his whole gallbladder removed. Still had the same pain. That was February 2024. And then I'm like, you need to go back. He's like, no. Trusting the doctors knew, and trusting that he didn't need to push it. But I knew, just like Tiara said, women we know And we know our spouses, we know people we care about, those that are close to us, and we know when something's off. And even sometimes, unfortunately, when it's not things we want to know, like bathroom habits, but we know. And my gut told me something was wrong, but he didn't go back to doctor until May to see his PCP. So from February to May, nothing. May, he goes to the doctor, and he was then sent for additional testing. And, you know, everything takes time. There's a waiting period. There's a month for this specialist, and then you have to wait a month for that specialist. And I think because we live in Massachusetts, people come here for healthcare, it creates a longer wait list to see the providers, and it puts a lot of pressure on the providers as well. I know that there's a lot of stress on their end. So he wasn't officially diagnosed with colon cancer until October of 2024. Almost a year from when he first started experiencing the pain, and after a surgery that we don't think was necessary. We are a blended family, beautifully blended. We have 4 children. My oldest is 18, just graduated from high school. And then we have 2 15-year-olds because of our blending, and then a 9-year-old daughter that we had together. So telling our kids was very difficult, and it was challenging, and we had to do it in different waves. So I told the oldest first. Looking back, we should have all sat together and had the conversation, but you know, I don't want to you know, like you said, give yourself some grace. And then I told my son next, my biological son, my husband's stepchild. And then he told his daughter actually found out, because similar to Brandy, our family was around, our friends in the community where we live was rallying around us and had a GoFundMe set up. And my bonus girl saw the GoFundMe, and that's how she found out that her dad had cancer. So my husband didn't want to tell the kids. He wanted to wait a lot longer than I did, and I had to respect that. And so after my oldest daughter found out, then we had to tell my youngest. Unfortunately, my youngest daughter knew that he had cancer before we did. She kept saying it. She was saying, Daddy has cancer. I hope it's not cancer. I hope it's not cancer. I swear, and it's unbelievable, but she was, and we were like, no, don't say that. Don't think like that. We don't want to put that into the atmosphere. And then to have to confirm her, what she thought was terrible. So I went and spoke to, you know, I did a lot of the, you know, as the wife, I did a lot of the back, you know, communicating to the doctors, emails, updates. You know, we had the meal train, I had Caring Bridge, where I had all the updates and everything, and staying on top of that, and all of that, you know, is very exhausting. And the kids felt that, even though I wasn't the one affected directly with the disease, I did a lot of managing, and a lot of responsibilities fell on me. And luckily, through Dana-Farber, we were connected with Pickles and a lot of other resources. My daughter now has been in therapy in person every week with an organization that's led by people of color. So they really understood, you know, they heard what I said. They got the assignment, and they really helped out. So yeah, that's our story. Thank you.
That's powerful. And I want to say, you mentioned to give yourself grace, but absolutely. And you said, although you didn't go through it, I have to tell you, you did, because it's a lot being a caregiver. That is a lot. You've been through, so you listed probably 13,000 things that you had to do. So give yourself grace. And I'm proud of you for also being a thriver, because you went through it as well with your husband. Thank you, beautiful ladies, for sharing the story. Janelle, I'm going to come to you and ask, what are some of the benefits and challenging parts of discussing cancer with children?
I think the benefits are, for me, being a grown adult child, being told that my father had cancer. It was just for me to know how to handle him. It was different because he wasn't himself. And so I had to keep that in mind, right? I had to keep that into perspective that he's sick. And coming from, I previously worked in the medical field, and one of the things that we experience are people are not happy when they come to the hospital or to the doctor's office. A lot of them are, they're there because something's wrong. There's an issue. They're sick. And therefore, that's where their grace come in, right? That's where their patience come in. That's where understanding and being caring comes in, because they're not there because they want to be. They're there because they have to be. And to walk this walk with him, what was a little bit different from me was I wasn't fully there, right? I'm grown, I have my own family. It was him and my mother, but now we stay, I'm like kind of in walking distance from them. But so we stay really close, but she was the caregiver, so had I lived at home, I would have seen, the differences and, his behavior and that type of thing. So I definitely believe the benefits is to communicate with your children, because as I put in the chat, children are so much they're so much more intelligent than what we give them credit for. They are so aware, and the communication level nowadays is just outstanding with some of these children. Only thing we have to do is to have a conversation and to listen to them. They'll definitely tell you what's on their mind or how they're feeling. So I think that it's so commendable to hear everyone here on this panel, how they communicated, and it was in your own timing, and it was when you felt it was necessary. And I'm sure, just like my dad communicated when he felt it was necessary for him to communicate with us. Now, he was diagnosed when he was 79. In April, he was diagnosed with small cell cancer in his upper small intestines, which is usually found in your lungs. And it was stage 4, and it was small cell is incurable. And I don't know how long he had it. He doesn't know. And if he did know, he didn't share with us, right? Until he had to start treatments and everything. But he passed away in October. But during that time, we were able to nurture our relationship. We were able to, my daughter was pregnant. We went to California. She was in the Navy. That's the picture that you all see. She was in the Navy. So we were able to go to California to have her baby shower, so that was his final trip. We didn't know that, but you kind of have an idea. So he ended up passing away. He made his 80th birthday, and then he ended up passing away after that. But to see a man that was so independent, was the head of the household, was the provider, worked 2 jobs. So to see him to have to go through that, it was, especially at the last moments. I know this story, it's a bittersweet story. Yeah, he passed away, but however, he didn't suffer for too long. So it was it was bittersweet, right? I'm glad, and we're glad that he didn't have to really suffer. So we did walk that journey with him a little bit, more so my mom. But I think it's so important to communicate with children, because, let them in a little bit, let them know what you're going through. One thing I'm so glad to be a part of, to have found out about Pickles, and listen, they're stuck with me now, but because I work with my breast cancer organizations, work with breast cancer women in treatment, survivors, and I just had a conversation with a couple of ladies. I went to their treatments, and they have children, right? One teenage daughter was there, but I was able to tell them about Pickles. So that's one thing that I'm grateful for, that I can share the resources that are out there, that they can, with the parents and then their children, because they don't have to do it by themselves. And if there's any type of questions, listen, moms, dads that's going through this, it's new to you all, right? Unless you're a 2-timer or whatever, but it's generally new. And so it's new for you, and it's new for them. And just like Nia, how you told Shantae, it's their journey too. So they have to walk this journey as a caregiver and as a family member. They walk this journey with the spouse, or with the child, or with the parent as well. So it not only affects them, it affects the whole family as a whole. So I think it's very important and very beneficial to communicate, with your children and your loved ones about what you're experiencing and what you're going through.
You must be a preacher. You better say it. So true. So true. Ladies, anybody else, tell us about the benefits and the challenges of discussing cancer, the cancer diagnosis to your children. I know Tiara talked about how she told her baby, and her baby wanted to just make her laugh, and knew that at 5 years old. Anybody want to speak on that?
I'll just reiterate, for me, one of the biggest challenges speaking to my son about it was just allowing myself to come to terms with what I was going through. And so it was even harder to be able to communicate that to him. As much as I knew, he was young at the time, he wouldn't have been able to fully grasp, other than he knew his mommy was sick. But I think for me, the biggest challenge was just not being able to do the little things. Because at 5, I mean, you're a little self-sufficient, but not, I mean, you still need your mommy for all the things. So just not being able to do, make his lunch, take him to school, look at his homework, check his homework, the littlest things that I used to drive me crazy, because I'm like, that's too many things going on as a mother, as a parent. I missed because I could not be there for him. And so I think that was the biggest challenge for me, was not being able to parent my child and to watch others not only parent and take care of my child, but also take care of me as an independent adult. So I think, to your point, Nia, you've said this so many times today, and I just love it so much. As cancer, patients and into survivorship, we have to continue to give ourselves grace. We can only do what we can do, and our children, they feed off of our energy. So, be with whatever feelings that you had, go through all of the emotions, don't mask it, seek help when you need it. Take the time when you need it, but also have those tough conversations with your children, because they know when something's wrong. And I think it's better to allow them to know what's going on at whichever level they're at, because that really helps them with their coping, being able to cope with their own emotions as they grow older. It's really, really essential for them to just grow and understand, how can I deal with these emotions at every stage? And being able to say, I'm thankful that my mom had, or my dad had, those tough conversations with me, because I now know how to cope with them, and I know how to support them and love on them the way they love on me. So I will end with that. So thank you all.
And then give yourself grace too, being a single parent.
Yes.
Dealing with that.
Yes. Yes. That's not easy. Just happy to be alive and doing this work. So thank you, guys.
Exactly. And I'll add a little bit, but yeah. For me, I don't know if anybody uses palliative care. I had no idea. Like, it's also a lot for us to be diagnosed with cancer. So I had no idea that the palliative care center also offers counseling and therapy. So I used them for counseling. I had two therapists. I had my own personal therapist, and I had the one from the cancer center, because different kind of things, same solution. So I used them when I was like having anxiety. They helped prescribe me some anxiety medication, which I never thought I would take, but I used it after I was diagnosed, for sure. And then another thing is, my hospital did not have anything for children. And I talked with the social worker. They actually copied a program from another place. And then they offered a program where the kids could come in and, like, after the cancer center closed, come in, see where their parents were getting like radiation or the chemo. And then they would like do boxes to talk about their feel. They had, it was like a month or 2 long program. It was so helpful. And then I would love that Pickles came along. We had already gone to Kesem, but we added Pickles at the beginning of the pandemic. And it was just great to have something else, because that was so critical to me. And also making sure my kids had access to therapists. They were already going through a lot with their parents divorcing, and then adding mommy getting diagnosed with cancer right on top was just too much. So everybody had therapy. And we actually have a bonus kid too. I don't consider my oldest kid my bonus kid, because I've been with her since she was 2. But yeah, so just therapy, being open and talking, and then just make memories. I mean, I'm so thankful to be here, and making memories with my kids is my number one thing.
And Brandy, I'm so glad you're highlighting mental health. Okay.
Yeah.
Say therapy one more time. Say it in Spanish if you know it.
Therapy, y'all.
Thank you. Thank you. Come on, beautiful. I saw you pop up. What were you going to say? Come on.
I am with everything that Brandy and Tiara has said, especially the therapy portion of it. When it comes down to when I finally told my kids and finally let the cat out of the bag, it was the healing portion of everything. And I think when you are, when you're on the other side and you have to go to your scans and you have to go to your doctor's appointments, it's kind of been a blessing in disguise for me because it's made the conversation easier so that way I can be open and tell my kids stuff and I'm not afraid to tell them anything because again the big C is a conversation that nobody wants to have, let alone when you have to have it with your kids and they ask you the ultimate question, are you going to be okay, are you going to die, because that's what that's what the big C is known for, right? So that's something that for me, it has really, like, even now, it's opened that door to have conversation, to accept that, even the aftercare after, the healing and all the things, and you feel all the things, and you're still scared about every single thing. I think that's been something that's really really been something for me to just open my eyes and say it's okay to have the hard conversations. I don't know how I'm going to have the hard conversations, but it's okay to have the hard conversations. So that's something that I've really learned for sure, a great lesson for sure to learn.
Thank you so much for sharing. And there's no manual to be a parent, right? So there's definitely not a manual to be a parent and have cancer, and then to tell your children have cancer. So thank God for Pickles to be in this community and offering this life-saving, impactful information. And you guys keep referencing the big C. So let's talk about culturally. What did you know of, or how was that conversation like in your family? Did you know about the big C? Did anybody in your family have the big C? Did you even say the big C in your family? Let's talk about culture and this big C word.
Okay, I'm gonna take this one. We all know as Black women, as women in general, especially in our culture, we are always told to pray about everything and worry about nothing. And that was one moment in my life I did question God and I did question my faith and I questioned everything that I knew about cancer. I knew breast cancer, I knew ovarian cancer, the top tiers of cancer. And every one that I knew, the end result was death. So that was something that was so scary for me because everyone that had cancer in my family, they had passed away, they had gone on. And so for me, it was scary again, just like talking to my kids. It was culturally scary because I knew what my mom was going to say before I even told her I had cancer. We're going to pray about it. Mm-hmm. Although I am so grateful for the prayers, sometimes you feel like you need just a little bit more because of the mental part of everything. Like, of course I'm going to pray. Of course I'm going to talk to God. Of course I'm going to be angry. But what is the next step that I need to take for me? So I think culturally, of course, it's good to pray, but it's also good to say, hey, mentally, this is hard. Mentally, I can't, I don't know how I'm going to deal with this. I need help. And that was something that I really had to come, to terms with. And thank God for the Kidney Cancer Association. And I could just reach out and speak to them and they would tell me it's okay to not be okay. Right. So I think that's something culturally we have to understand that even beyond cancer, it is okay to not be okay. Life is hard. Having cancer is harder. Putting everything on top of everything and then have to fight, that is hard. So for me, it was just, I know I have to pray, but I know I have to do something else. So culturally, that's something that I'm piecing together. I'm trying to figure out how, but I think culturally it was the, prayer and lean on your faith and lean on your, don't lean on your own understanding. But I needed something and still do need something more. Like I still want to understand, but I need that support for sure. So I think that's something that culturally I'm still trying to wrap my brain around for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Shantae, I also want to come to you as well. You know, culturally, you were put in a situation where you couldn't really tell about the diagnosis. You had to sort of stay in your lane, right? Talk to us about culturally how that is, just being the caregiver, but then also, you know, just being the wife and being supportive, you know?
Yeah, that's definitely tough. But really quick before I forget, I want to piggyback off of what Mallory said around the prayer. And I think the other thing that is related is and I'm not gonna say we, I'm gonna say I and my family, we don't talk about our health. We don't talk about a lot of things. A lot of things are, not for, you're not grown enough, or you don't need to know my information because I'm the adult and you're the parent. So in my family and my husband's family, that's how we operate. That's how it was, I should say. And so we are a part of the shift and a part of changing that narrative. And we're talking a lot more, us sharing, just the fact that he had cancer and everything that came out of that. He tried to do a deep dive into his family and get information, but his father passed away, so he couldn't get that information, and his mom doesn't know. So it's because we don't talk enough, in my opinion, and my circles. So, and then, I'm going to support my husband. Was I happy about it? Absolutely not. And I struggled with that. I fought him internally. I didn't do, and also you can't outwardly, or you're told not to outwardly, go against your spouse when they're sick. It's like you can't say certain things. You have to do whatever that go along and to get along. And so that was difficult, but I knew that it was for the best. And I knew that either way, he was going to figure it and learn the lesson. I knew that we should have told them, but I knew that he needed to learn the lesson. And it was learned. He learned the lesson after my girl found it on social media. So yeah, it's important to stand with them, but I also let him know that I wasn't in agreement with it. So that's also that part. He knew that I was not happy about it, and he knew that I was only doing it because he wanted me to.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Janelle, I know you had your hand up. Come on, beautiful. Come on, Pastor. What do you have to say?
You know what? And this along the lines of what Mallory and Shantae said. Being and I don't know how the other cultures are, but being of a Black family, right? We were taught what happens in this house stays in this house, right? Don't you go telling the family business. And that was one of the things that we have to learn to get away from. You know, being a founder, having an organization, and speaking to women, and especially now we're trying to get in touch with our younger women because we want them to know their bodies, right? We want to, at the age of 18, I had a fibrinoma and a tumor, and I had to have it removed. Well, thank God it was big enough and it was up at the surface a little bit, so it was easy for me to find. But what if it wasn't, right? And so what if I had just never said anything? So we have to encourage the openness and the open communication with everyone in the family, because I mean, you just want to make them aware. And like right now, we teach the younger generation because, as we know, breast cancer is affecting our women younger and younger, and we want them to get to know their bodies. And if something doesn't feel right, because how would you know it's not right if you didn't know what it felt like to begin with, right? So we need them to first get to know their bodies. And then if it doesn't feel right, say something. You have to nurture that open communication. But yeah, that's one thing. Yeah, no, you don't discuss what happens in this family. You don't discuss me. I'm an open book. I tell you whatever you want to know. So I think it's great to have those open communications.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Kelsey, I think we need a part 2 because I know time, but these ladies are phenomenal. And I'll just end with thank you so much for being honest. Thank you so much for being transparent. Thank you for sharing your voice. And although this is Juneteenth Eve, culturally, we learn by sharing stories, right? So let's not be silent. and let's continue to share our stories, your stories, because your stories are going to continue to save your life, not only your life, your children's life, but our community's life. So thank you so much, ladies, for sharing your stories. Thank you, Kelsey, so much for hosting this and having this. And thank you, Pickles, for doing this life-saving work.
Thank you, Nia. Thank you to all of our panelists. I'm just going to whip through really quick just so you see what's coming your way. So really quick plug, if you're a family on the call who has young kids who are facing a parent's cancer, we are currently enrolling for our next Connect Over Cancer summer cohort. Registration closes next Friday. We would love to have your families join us. So please, please enroll, refer. You'll get that information in the follow-up email. And then you're going to get a whole bunch of information about all of these amazing organizations. This will hit your inbox by the end of tonight. And we also have a 2-pager on some of the articles, and I'm laughing because I'm hearing so much of like, culturally we're told to like be private and rely on our faith and be positive, and also like it's okay to not be okay. So thank you to these brave, courageous, inspiring women and families for acknowledging what's so special about your families and also being vulnerable to break cycles and change things for your kids, and for future generations. Collectively, we're in this work together, and we're grateful for you for sharing your stories so that we can reach more families who are having these difficult conversations at home. So thank you, and celebrating Juneteenth early, but we are seeing you all day, every day, and we're grateful. So thank you.